everyone, and welcome to Entrepreneur Edge. Our mission is to empower small business owners and set them up for success by sharing insider tips and tricks geared specifically for entrepreneurs. If you enjoy what you hear today and would like to be invited to future discussions, please let us know and we'll keep you in the loop. And don't forget to hit the like button and share because this will be on YouTube. So for that, we would appreciate it. So today we're going to have Alicia lead a talk about pricing strategy for entrepreneurs, a very interesting subject. Alicia is a branding and marketing strategist for the last 16 years, having worked with over 100 brands. Alicia has a passion for working with entrepreneurs and engaging the small business community to help everyone benefit from brand strategy. With us also today is Shlomo Denburg, direct from California via Brooklyn, New York. And he is a CPA with one of the owners of Sapphire Accounting. Sapphire Accounting offers fractional CFO and bookkeeping services designed to boost profitability for business owners so they can spend more time with loved ones. They specialize in helping business owners gain a more thorough understanding of their financials and the decisions that those financials can help them make. And I am Charlie Comparetto. I'm a managing partner at J. Galt, which encompasses the business credit building finance suite, my J. Galt consulting, coastal consulting practice, as well as J. Galt Capital. J. Galt specializes in helping small and medium-sized businesses access and leverage capital on their EIN without using personal guarantees, which is a real problem for most mainstream business owners. Now, I've worked in finance for over 30 years in the capital markets as a trader and a broker on the institutional side, but I'm also a serial entrepreneur and a small business owner myself. We are so glad that you have all joined us for this talk today. If you have any questions during our talk, please send me a private message and we'll pick a few questions to fold into the conversation. And so without further ado, I'll let Alicia get things started. Alicia, take it away.
Amazing. Thank you, Charlie. I'm so stoked to be here. It's great to see all you people in the mix in Zoom. I do want to preface this by saying this is not an exhaustive or in-depth educational talk intending to cover everything having to do with pricing strategy. But I've worked with so many entrepreneurs over the years that this is a topic that's pretty interesting to me and dear to my heart. So I did a bunch of research and sort of cherry-picked the strategies that I think will be the most useful for us to talk about today for entrepreneurs. So without too much further ado, I do want to start things off with the why. Branding and marketing it's always important to understand what the motivation is. So why are we here? Why should we care about brands, about pricing strategy? Because it directly impacts customer perception, revenue, and profitability. Also, if you do want to go take an exhaustive deep dive in pricing strategy, I can recommend this book, How to Build and Implement a Winning Pricing Strategy. It's sold in the Harvard bookstore. I figure they're pretty picky in Harvard. They should probably have a good book on this stuff. If you want to check it out and dig deep, there's a good one for you. So in my research for the different pricing strategies out there, I tried to lump them into meaningful chunks because that's just how my brain works. And I thought maybe if you weren't like a financial professional, you would appreciate that. So I came up with 4 main things. First is like basics, the really like bare bones, like this is the obvious way to approach pricing strategy. It might not even feel like a strategy. It kind of feels like a no duh, but it's worth talking about briefly. And then number 2 is adaptive. And so this is like companies can choose to adapt their business practices to be more competitive within the marketplace. So that's the company making the change to like how they do business. And then number 3, there are some strategies that I'm calling responsive. So this is like the pricing changes based on what the market is doing. They're responding to fluctuating factors, and we'll talk about what those are. And then the 4th one is psychological. So psychology, behavioral studies, things that are maybe less logical unless you're a psychologist. So we'll take a look at that too. And then we'll have some time at the end for discussion. I have blanket invited Charlie and Shlomo to pepper me with questions and be the peanut gallery if they think of anything. So they'll be holding that card for you guys unless you send Charlie a question and then we'll try to address it.
Anything to put you on the spot then. Sure.
They like to see me jump. So the first group is the basic pricing strategies. Okay. So I think these are really interesting because they're a little bit in opposition. They are cost plus pricing and competitive pricing. Cost plus basically means how much does it cost for you to run your business? And then the idea is that you add a percentage markup or whatever you want to make as a profit to that. Now, Shlomo, you talked about zero-based budgeting in our last webinar, and it seemed to me like this would be like a natural flow from that one. Does that feel right to you?
Yeah, so I think really like we discussed last time, this concept of how zero-based budgeting will really goes into the nitty-gritty and figuring out every single one of your expenses, which is hard to do often. So it's more like one of those yearly things. And this really helps if you know all your costs exactly, it's very easy to know and create that markup and that added thing that you want on top of it.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So it's like you've already gone through the bother to do it anyways with your budgeting approach. So it seems like an obvious flow from that. On the other
Yes.
side,
Oh,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, I'm saying, and then you'll know perfectly what your markup is because you know every cost there.
Right. Okay. And then the other basic strategy is competitive. So you basically look at what the competition is doing and you're like, okay, this is what the market will bear and this is what we're going to charge. This can get companies in a little bit of trouble, especially if they're starting out. They might not be very efficient yet. And so they're not able to like take advantage of the volume or the efficiency. But in order to even like show up in the marketplace, they might need to ask a price that holds water. An interesting way that I thought of doing this, not just products, but like the service model, there's something called task-based pricing. So for example, if you are an entry-level provider versus like a much senior level provider, even if you're a senior person, it might take you like 5 hours to do something that would take a junior person like 25 hours. And so if you raise your hourly rate so that you're cost competitive with the more junior person, sometimes you can scare potential clients away because they ask you your hourly rate and they choke because they don't realize it's only going to take you 5 hours to do it. So I've heard this task-based pricing as a way of getting around that, where you list out all the tasks that you're going to be doing as part of your service package. And then what is the typical market asking price for each of those? And so that way you're kind of like reverse engineering it and you don't talk about hours at all. It's just these are the tasks. And I remember, Shlomo, was it activity-based budgeting that is kind of like that?
Yeah, so very good point. So it's actually funny you call it task-based. I've heard it also known as value-based, which
Mm.
is really that idea. Yeah, you're going based on this is the value that I provide regardless of my time. And yeah, activity-based budgeting could really help because that's all about knowing your cost drivers. And by knowing your cost drivers and where it is, okay, you know I can make X amount. This is slightly could work with a few strategies, but I do like that budgeting style for it.
Cool. Okay. So again, if you're doing the budgeting anyways, you kind of have that list already. And so you're like halfway down the road of that approach to budgeting.
Correct.
Okay, so those are the basic ones. And again, they're a little bit in opposition because cost plus is like working from, what does it cost to do business? And the other one is like, what will the market bear? So those are the two sides of it. The next sort of like chunk of pricing strategies that I noticed were the adaptive ones. So this is where in an attempt to gain an upper hand, the company might adapt to what's happening with their business, and they might try to compete on like price or assert superior value or offer bundles as an attempt to increase an average order value. And in a nutshell, these are also slightly in opposition. There's economy pricing, where a company can cut costs wherever possible to compete on price. It's also known as penetration pricing. You might offer things in bulk so that per the per hour or like the per unit price feels more competitive, but you're saving on packaging and stuff like that. People might bundle stuff together so that it feels like you're getting a deal, but then for the business owner, it increases your average order value. Promotions are another way of trying to compete on price. And then on the other side of that, you might adapt your business strategies by taking the higher road, the higher price road, shall we say. You want to assert superior value wherever you can. So this is like, you don't change your price, but you're like, but we're a luxurious offering. We offer superior service. Or even in the case of like software, maybe it's not about how much the software actually costs, because that's like code, and how do you talk about the number of hours that your coding team used to develop the software, but you could talk about the impact on the business. especially with like apps and stuff like that, or even B2B software, art programs, financial programs, QuickBooks, this kind of stuff. They talk about the hours saved for the customer and the impact it's going to have on their business.
Alicia, is there
So
anyone
some
you would not recommend bundling?
like type of business that shouldn't do one or the
Yeah.
other of these.
Is there any like off the top of your head? I'm just curious.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Well, I do feel like if you're competing, if you're taking an economy pricing strategy, you
mhm.
shouldn't really also try to be a luxury brand, because it sort of sets the tone that, you know, you're low cost. And I feel like that sort of cannibalizes from the positive brand image that you probably are trying to project as a value-based pricing strategy company. Um, and in fact, also sometimes with value, companies will maybe have a lower portion size and then also increase the price, because things that are, as we perceive that, you know, if you go to like Golden Corral or something for breakfast and it's $20, you want like a trough of food, right? But if you go
Right.
to like a bougie restaurant and it's a $20 thing, it might be like this big, like a little amuse bouche. And so I think that really knowing your target audience and like where you show up is probably important. And also, if you're going to compete on value, you should look reassuringly expensive. Like, of course, I'm going to say this as a branding and marketing person, but like your packaging and, you know, the level of service, and like if you're a brick and mortar store, the shopping experience should justify that claim, I think.
Okay, so brilliant. So like stay on one strategy, basically. Don't try to do everything at once. I
I
think
would
that's
I would say so. Or like have, you know, sometimes luxury brands will have like an entry level market sort of a thing. Like a clothing brand might have like the haute couture, like Ralph Lauren, you know, they're on the red carpet. Maybe, actually, I don't know if they are, but some of their stuff is really expensive. And then you can also see them in like Ross and stuff like that. Um, so I think some brands try to compete on both of these.
okay. Amazing.
So some examples are Costco. That's the one that comes to mind to me the most for bulk. Um, so you notice when you're there, or Sam's Club or whatever is in your area, the packaging is pared down. Cereal might not come in a box. It might be some bag with a sticker slapped on it. Often they don't offer individual portion sizes. Maybe there's multiple things to a unit or a box. And then also sometimes you get a variety pack, but there's only like 3 varieties, whereas in the regular grocery store, there's like 8 or something like that. Um, and so the companies are lowering their price in exchange for the opportunity to sell at volume. So they're hoping that the volume of sales are going to make up for lowering the price a little bit. Another example for value-based pricing, I think would be fine wine. So for any artisan offerings, or any company that's offering a extremely convenient thing, or they're offering luxury services, also digital products, this strategy is really relevant, because you're focusing on the experience and the value, and in some ways the je ne sais quoi, right? Like that means like I don't know what in French. It's like this elusive, it's wine, right? People buy, you can't taste it, you don't even see what color it is when you buy it, and like a lot of the labels, they don't have a lot of details on it. Often what you're selling is a mystique, and then hopefully you're educated enough about wine to know if it was worth the 10, 20, 30, $40 or however much you paid on it. But if you have a good pricing strategy and packaging, and you're going after that sort of value pricing, you can offer that elite experience and justify your price tag.
I think controversially, diamonds might also be an example of that.
Ooh, yeah. Do you know that that whole concept of like an engagement ring was invented by the diamond industry?
Yeah, it's brilliant. The concept of 3 months of salary.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's
Yeah,
funny.
it's all invented by them as a marketing scheme.
Wow. And here we thought Hallmark was like genius for making cards be a thing. Um, so the third chunk of pricing strategies I'm calling responsive. Let me see if there's anything else I want to talk about on the economy stuff really quick here. Don't think so. I covered all that. Okay, so for responsive pricing strategies, businesses can also fluctuate their pricing based on market factors. So they're responding to what's happening in the market. These pricing strategies seem to be like they might be really effective for companies using rolling budgets, Shlomo, which I think you talked about last time, or flexible budgets. Would you mind reminding us a little bit what those are, so it comes from the source's mouth instead of me trying to summarize it?
You know, I almost wanted you to do it just to see if I explained it well, but no problem. Yeah, so flexible budgeting is really this idea of having your budget be flexible with your type of company. Now, for example, an easy example would be people who are, let's say, in a concierge service, where they have certain times of year when it's very useful for them to raise their price because they know people are coming in, and therefore they should budget accordingly because they also know that's when they'll have the most expenses. Whereas a rolling budget is very dynamic, but it takes a lot of time to do, where it's a rolling 12 months. So instead of doing an entire yearly budget, every month you're adding a month and keeping the previous 11. So it really helps you with adapting to market conditions, but it does require quite a bit of effort because you have to be on top of it every month.
Right. That's why people have CFOs or fractional CFOs like you.
That's exactly one of the things we do, because exactly it is one of the things that could be really helpful, but it is a lot of time and it takes effort.
So let's see. So in this category, I am putting these four: price skimming, premium pricing, freemium pricing, and dynamic pricing. So price skimming is like you set a really high price, and then as the market like evolves and more competitors come to the table, you can slowly reduce your price to make yours seem more attractive. Um, it's a it's important to diffuse sticker shock. So when you set that first high price, it's really important to like assert the value. This is usually used by like emerging technologies and stuff like that. Because if there's only one on the market, then you can ask that, but you got to do the PR to justify it and stuff like that. And then as you become more efficient, or maybe it's the 2.0 version of it or something like that, you can slowly reduce your pricing. The second one is premium pricing. So you set a low price to enter the market, and then you slowly raise it later. Sometimes this includes like a starting at price or like a base price that gets add on. I think earlier Charlie and I were talking about like go to the burrito joint and like the base burrito is like this much. And then once you get all the stuff that you want on it, it adds up to it. It's important with this one to balance transparency. I think I have some examples later, but sometimes you can really annoy your customers. You have to be careful that all the add-ons don't add up to something that becomes cost prohibitive to them. The
So
second
that's
one is free.
Sorry, Alicia. Yeah, Alicia. It's something I noticed also a lot of times with like when you're paying something, even on Amazon, sometimes like this one small extra cost of shipping, which if someone offered for free and just raised the price, you would have been happier about it. And then that tiny thing is enough to annoy the customer.
It's true.
Yeah,
Some of them want you.
we talked about, I'm going to hold on comic.
He's got a dog helping with the chiming in. And we'll give examples of these later, and Charlie, you can chime in then. The freemium pricing is, just like it sounds, it's like free. You might offer a free tier of service as a way to like gaining adoption or like giving your customers a taste. This is particularly helpful for like things that are going to market for the first time. The endowment effect helps convert sales, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Or if you are like a marketplace company where you're like maybe like a matchmaker, you're connecting like musicians with booking gigs. You really want to get as much adoption as you can, so as many people signing up for it, because otherwise you're selling a marketplace that doesn't exist. And then lastly, dynamic pricing. So this is pricing that would change on any number of factors, like when the purchase is made. Hey, is it happy hour or is it like primo dinner time and people are gonna be paying full price? It could be where the person is located. Is it like a high demand area, or is it a pain in the butt to ship there? And any number of other factors.
So I'm gonna hop back in here, Alicia. I apologize. Of course, like we have a delivery, when we're doing our webinar, like no one's knocking on this door in weeks, but just about premium pricing and freemium pricing, I find it interesting. So with premium pricing, like one of the biggest things I think people have to be careful, and it really annoys me, is like the airlines, like you're buying, you look at a seat on, Frontier or something, and it's like, $49 to Denver, like, yes. But, when you do the math, it's actually cheaper on United half the time, but they're going to torture you on your way to Denver. So like that bait and switch can be really annoying. And then like I don't know if this is premium or freemium. I think maybe a blend of both, but I know like with Jay Galt, some of the things that we are doing is, we offered our clients our first couple of years in business, a lifetime membership. But it's something that we kind of knew we couldn't offer forever. So it's kind of like, it's almost like a freebie for them that we gave it to our clients for now, but we knew to do that for everybody who ever came along. We have thousands of clients. That's going to be something that would be too cost prohibitive, but we gave it for the first couple of years just to help us build our business. And it's something that's going away soon. So I don't know if that's kind of a good example of it. And I think,
Absolutely.
and then to replace it, and again, I'd like to hear your feedback on this if it's appropriate. We're starting to we are going to give some free things that we do include, but for people that aren't using our service. It's like our cash flow mapping software and stuff. We're going to say, hey, here's our cash flow mapping software. You can use this. You can test it out. And then if it's something you find you need for your business, then maybe you come in and actually become a client.
Absolutely. I mean, that sounds like a combination of like freemium and then the value add, because, you're talking about the impact that it's going to have on their business, but you're giving them a free taste first. So I guess that's a great example that these can be combined, or like a company can use one of them to come to market and then switch gears and stuff like that. That's awesome.
Very, very adaptive and transparent. You could constantly keep on changing them, I think, and see
Yeah.
what works. For a second, I thought Charlie was getting paid by United to promote them, but
And just like Shlomo, like the budgeting, Shlomo, right? Like you have to adapt to where you are and what you're doing,
Yeah.
and where your business is at.
And I think that that's a great example too of like, what audience are you going after, and like how annoyed are they going to be when you add stuff on? Like even United, they didn't used to have like business class, like that didn't exist, right? Like a long time ago, it was just like first class and regular. And now it's like you can pay extra for like priority boarding. You can join, I guess the lounge has been around for a while. So I feel like United and Delta and like those sorts of airlines, they have a little bit of it, but like the Frontier, Spirit, like, man, they're hitting that juice hard. Like they have so many add-ons. By the time you're done, you're just like, what happened? There was just yellow and there were a lot of check boxes. And then by then you're so exhausted, you don't even want to go back and try to like cost compare it with United. You're like, I don't want to go through that again. I'm scarred. I'm just going to give you my money.
Yeah, and if your like bag is like 5 pounds over, it's really cost prohibitive. Like, so they make sure they get you when they get you.
It's true.
Which I
It's true.
don't think that's smart strategy, frankly, because I think most people are, kind of game to it and are annoyed by it. I don't think there's a lot of people going around going, I love Spirit, which I think or Frontier. And I think at one time Frontier was a popular airline, but I think they're kind of blowing it.
I've flown both. Sometimes I'm just cheap, I will admit. Like I think one time I was going to go on a flight and I did the math and I was like, I'm just going to have Target. Like I'm going to order it ahead of time and I'll get like socks and underwear and stuff because I don't need a bag. I'm only going for a few days. And it was so cheap. It was ridiculous. They got me. They totally got me. I think it probably has to do with just like a little bit in the market and like how much people's time and energy is what they're valuing versus dollars. That might be part of it. I'm not sure. It'll be interesting to see a study on that one. An example of price skimming would be a 3D printer. And so just a reminder, price skimming is like when you first come to market, you charge a high price. And then as the market evolves, you lower your pricing. So when 3D printing first came out, it was like totally groundbreaking. All of our minds were blown. The machines were incredibly expensive. And then now you can get like this desktop thing that like squirts out the plastic and you can print little tchotchkes. And these are as low as $300, which is definitely not the way it was when it came out. So this is an example of, the pricing adapting to the market and how, as it becomes more widely adopted, the technology gets more efficient. There you go, Charlie. There's your example of premium pricing. Premium upgrades like priority boarding or the ability to pre-select desirable seating within the aircraft. Remember when they just used to let you do that for free? But now if you just want the privilege of actually sitting with the people you're flying with, oh no, that's extra. So
I mean, speaking of Frontier, I had relatives who just went to go book a flight, and they were going on Frontier, and the person said, if you want me to help you book a flight and you don't do it yourself, that's an extra $20. So every little thing was a price. It could leave a very sour taste in people's mouth.
yeah, it's interesting to strike that balance as entrepreneurs. We're selling products and also services, our time and stuff like that. They call it the paradox of choice. Especially as Americans, we like choice, but at a certain point we get really overwhelmed, and too much choice can be like paralyzing, or too many options, too many add-ons. And so to take this back to entrepreneurs, it might be worth thinking about like which things are things that everyone is going to want, that you want to bake into your base price. And especially if you're competing on value, maybe you start to include some of the things that the other brands are not. And you can be like, no, we're not price gougers. Like, we're not, charging you for oxygen on the flight or whatever it is for your industry. And you can assert that value. And then maybe there are some add-ons, but they're a little bit more luxurious or something like that. And then conversely, if everything is all in one lump sum, people might not feel like they have a choice. Studies show that people for certain industries and certain like purchases, they want to feel like it's more customized and it's just for them. So I think really digging deep into your audience's like motivations for working with you, and how much they want to feel like they're part of the process, I think that could be really helpful to helping you pick like what pricing strategy could work for best for your business. So another example, so for the freemium pricing, Dropbox does offer a free tier. That's it's a great way to introduce people to like, Dropbox is not something that everyone is used to having. Like, I think now we're pretty used to it, but when they were first coming out, the idea of storing things in the cloud was still sort of like a little odd for people. And so this way you can get people used to the convenience of it, and then they can upgrade to a paid plan for features such as more storage or like enhanced security features. And the thing that's nice about this is like, once you started using Dropbox and you're like using their free version, you have all these files in there, you share it with your clients or your customers or whatever you're doing, man, it's a pain in the butt to take all that stuff down and then sign up for a different sharing service like Amazon Web Services or Google Drive, and then to get your staff and customers and everybody to use it. So this is, I think, a good example of showing how, yes, they're like giving away something for free, but what they're selling is really storage. And so it doesn't cost that much for them to give a free account. And this way they're gaining adoption.
Like a foot in the door idea.
Absolutely. Yeah. An example of dynamic pricing might be Uber. So I don't know if you've noticed, but certain times of day, man, that Uber trip is a lot more expensive. They call these surges. So it could be anything from rush hour. Maybe there's a big live show going on, like Madonna's in town and the show just ended. Guess what? Uber's probably gonna be more expensive. The holidays, and then just like other factors about like how many drivers are available at any given time. See, I know I mentioned happy hour. I wonder if there's some other examples that can help us thinking about dynamic pricing. Off season, like if you're a hotel or something like that, sometimes you can offer off season pricing to encourage to fill the gaps.
I mean, I'll say like I'm a sucker for happy hour. Like, it's first of all, it's just a fun time to go, but it's, you get that cheap price to get you in there, but you end up staying and spending full price, or I'm a real sucker for it. Publix is huge where we are in Florida. They have the 2-for-1s. Like every week there's a 2-for-1. I'm like all about the 2-for-1s. Like everything is 2-for-1. I'm buying it. Even if I never heard the brand before, I'm like, let's bring that. And then
And you're so
also
proud of
thing
yourself for
Hey,
like making such an intelligent,
and I think
I've
you mentioned this earlier, right? You said, or at least I know I saw it in some of your notes, like the on the receipt, it shows you how much you saved. So I'm like, that number is, I'm trying to beat that number constantly. So,
I love it.
they've got me. That's a marketing, it's obviously a marketing scam, and not a scam, but it's a great marketing plan because one, I'm
Tactic,
trying
yeah.
different products, right? And you know, it's a
Carl,
good way to.
I'm waiting for the next invitation now. We can go for a competition here.
Uh-oh. Maybe that'll be the
Yeah.
follow-up add-on.
Very next one,
Um,
yeah.
I want to point out too on both of these, like the how much did you save and stuff like that. I guarantee they didn't have that from the beginning. I feel like maybe they, and also the cashier sometimes will give you the receipt and say, you saved $7.62 today. And you're just like, yeah. They don't have to say that. I'm sure it's part of their training. And also for the happy hour, I think a lot of times we think we're getting a great deal and it's like wings or something like that. And it's like 3 of them as opposed to 12 or whatever it is. So, it's something to think about as service providers and as entrepreneurs. Maybe you have like office hours or something like that, where if someone books you for your services on days that are slow for you, maybe they get a cheaper session, but it's 25 minutes instead of 45 minutes. That's your usual one. So the quote unquote cost per unit or something like that might go down, but the overall, or might be the same, but the overall price tag feels less. Or maybe there's some way to bridge the gap between that, so that you can still feel, your customers can still feel like they're getting value, but it's a price point that they can afford. And then, if they come back and end up spending just as much, that's fine, because you've given them sort of like maybe a little bit of that freemium, but not quite free. It's like a taste of what you have to offer. Oh, yes. So the last one, psychological pricing tactics. These are 3 main ones I'd like to cover. The first one is the feel good factor. So increasingly, as customers, we want to vote with our dollars. We want to support companies that we believe in, and that we feel are doing good and giving back. There's some sort of metric about how confident and how trustworthy the customer is towards different organizations. And a few years ago, I gave a talk on branding, and I should have pulled this research, but it's really interesting. They were saying that as consumers, as customers, we're losing faith in the government to fix our problems, to nonprofits to fix our problems. But we are placing more emphasis on businesses. Like, we want businesses to take a stand, and we are willing to pay more as a whole, a customer whole, for companies that we number theory. And so this is very much about just how customers perceive pricing. It could be influenced by society, their culture, the setting. Is it like a more luxurious setting or a more cost competitive setting? And then lastly, the sunk cost fallacy. People are reluctant to abandon a path of action because they have already invested heavily in it. The sunk cost fallacy is that you've already gone down this path so far, maybe with this service or this product or whatever it is. You're like, man, I'm already using it. I already know how to use it. I already like using all these other things. It would be such a pain in the butt to switch that I really feel like I can't afford to switch. When really it might be just like your emotional investment or the amount of time that you've invested in it. So we'll talk a little bit about that. What?
Kind of like a poker table when you start going in and you have a bad hand, and at a certain point you've gone too far and you just say, I'll try to bluff my way out of this.
That's interesting. I like that. That's even what's very psychological. And I think it's also a reminder that, these sound a little nebulous, but when you're the customer and you're in the moment, like, these are very real factors.
Yeah.
In fact, according to Harvard business professor Gerald Zaltman, 95% of our purchase decision making takes place in the subconscious mind, and emotions are what really drive purchasing behavior and decision making in general. I think this is why in like retail stores in the mall, they put the sale rack in the back, because they want to make you walk past all of the full price stuff that you can like touch and like see it on the mannequins and all that stuff before you get back to the like crammed sale rack that's all like, it's in like some subpar part of the retail place. They want you to like, they want you to have to go through all of that beforehand to make sure that you really want to have the cheap one.
Yeah.
A great example of a company taking advantage of the feel good factor, and not even taking advantage, but they're just really trying to do the right thing. And I think that a lot of their customer base is loyal because of that, is Patagonia. If you're not familiar with Patagonia, they're a high-end manufacturer and retailer of outdoor gear and apparel, super big on the West Coast. They are a B Corp, which is a certification that a company can seek where they meet a certain number of criteria that proves that they are a company with a heart. They certify their down jackets to be humane to animals. So, down jackets are made from feathers. So they're not killing the animals to harvest the feathers. They're doing it in some other way. I don't know if they brush them or something, but it's a pain in the butt and they really believe in it. And so it says so on all of their down jackets. They founded 1% for the Planet certification, which is these companies pledge to give 1% of their profits to support environmental and sustainable things. And they did this like for other companies to participate in it too, not just themselves. And then they also engage the local community around them with grants and supporting environmental organizations. They have a really loyal following for their expensive products. And this is kind of an extreme example. I don't know that necessarily every brand is going to be going this far, but I think we do see, on websites and even with my clients, they want to make a difference. I'm talking to a guy right now about helping him with some branding who really believes, really loves manatees. And that's part of, he wants to give back and believes in that. So we're going to be weaving it into his brand story. Another one of my clients sells sustainable goods. And I introduced him to this company called Ecology, ECOLOGI, where you integrate it with Shopify and they automatically take like a small percentage or donation from every sale and put it towards reforestation efforts and things like that. And it automatically generates like this web page that reports on what that company's impact has been. Super low stakes. Talk about an interesting business model. So anyways, those are just some ideas for how as a business you could do something like this. And then you want to talk about it because if people want you want your customers to feel good about supporting what you're doing. So it doesn't necessarily mean that your actions are not, motivated by a desire to give back, because they are, but don't be quiet about it, please. As a marketing person, like, don't be quiet about it. Tell that story. An example of the number theory would be fast food. So when competing heavily on price, companies choose numbers that end in 9, and they emphasize the dollar numbers and make the cents smaller to make it appear as if the item is like a full dollar less. You'll also notice, I don't know if you can see it, but the dollar sign is a little bit smaller, and then the 10 is massive on this this pricing menu. On the other side, if you are a luxurious company or you want to look like a high-end boutique or like a haute cuisine restaurant, you may have noticed that these menus tend to not even have a dollar sign. They don't have any cents on them either. It's almost like a cryptic like test to see if you can figure out where the price is. They might even omit the pricing and make you ask. Have you ever been to one of those restaurants where it's just a menu and then you get to ask the server how much it costs? That's when you really know you're in trouble with the bill. So just thinking about how you present the price can really impact how people are perceiving their experience. Another one is a cultural bias. So I don't know if you knew this, but in many Asian cultures, the number 8 symbolizes longevity. I think it's because it looks like the infinity symbol, but upright. And it holds special significance. In fact, Psychology Today magazine reported on this with an article, quote unquote, "Why are prices ending in the number 8 so popular in Asia?" So this is totally a thing. And I included the house on here because I know, Charlie, you mentioned that you've seen this in real estate. Did I remember that correctly?
As far as the the
Pricing.
the 8s, yeah, and I used it when I sold our home in New York. I mean, in Asian culture, 8's like a lucky number, I think, is what I've heard. And so you'll see, especially where, in the New York area, there's a lot of homes that are for sale, for like 288,000 or 388,000, because they see that and it makes them supposedly more likely to buy just because it's lucky, or they'll negotiate to that price point. So they want the
That's
8 in the
interesting.
sale price so that it brings them luck.
Man, I should have priced our house for sale a little differently, maybe.
Just make
Makes
it
me think about that.
$888,888.88, and you're probably someone's gonna buy it.
That's funny.
So
Well, maybe they'll negotiate to that and it'll end in an 8. We'll see. And then an example of the sunk cost fallacy pricing would be HubSpot. If you're not familiar with them, HubSpot is a customer relationship management software. It's a fancy way of saying like they keep track of your contacts and like how many times you've been in touch with them. They handle things like email marketing and like landing pages so that you can track the activity and the interactiveness that your prospective customer is having with your brand. It's designed to help usually larger sales teams, but HubSpot does offer a low tier. Their lowest tier of service is free. It's a very powerful software, but it is laborious to set up. I have slogged through it before. It's not for the faint of heart, even though it is really powerful. And their largest competitor, Salesforce, does not offer a free lowest tier level of service. So they're probably using this as a differentiating factor. And I know that a lot of small businesses, entrepreneurs will start off with HubSpot because of that free tier. Now, if you need to flex up to a paid plan because you need more robust features, even if Salesforce is a better fit for you at that point, man, you have set up HubSpot to reflect how your business flows. You've set your targets, probably trained your business staff to like integrate it and how to use it in your system. There's an app that you've installed on your phone. Huge pain in the butt to switch over. And in that case, maybe it wouldn't be a fallacy. It would be literally a sunk cost. And
Right.
so because it's free, it's like a really long lead into becoming a long-term customer with them. Let me see if I have any other examples of these that I wanted to talk about. I don't think so. Charlie or Shlomo, do you have any that come to mind that would be a good?
You're saying besides my poker analogy.
Oh, I wanted to talk about subscriptions and retainers. I think that can be included in the sunk cost fallacy. The idea that subscriptions and retainers can be a powerful way to manage cash flow. If you're signing up for something like Constant Contact, which is like an email marketing platform, they'll be like, oh, if you want to use our service monthly, it's like this much money. But if you pay for a year in advance, it's this much money. It doesn't cost them more money to have you use their software monthly. That is a trick. That is a psychological trick. They're trying to get you to commit to using it for a year. They might even combine this. You've seen this with apps and stuff with a freemium strategy. Oh yeah, use our app for like free for 7 days or some like completely obtuse number that you then forget about, right? And then you get charged for the renewal of it, which, Charlie and I were talking about transparency and how you don't want to like annoy the customer. So that's a tricky one. But especially for those of us who are smaller entrepreneurs and we're looking to manage our cash flow, like a subscription and a retainer, maybe it does cost more, like if you're a software developer, like the software already exists and stuff. And so the monthly versus a year might not be that big of a deal. But if you're an independent, practitioner or, like a service provider, man, it's costly to not know, what your cash flow is going to be like month to month. So you might be willing to give people a discount or mark it up if it's on call or a la carte or something like that, because you have to like shuffle your schedule around to accommodate them. So I do think that these are more psychological factors, at least from the customer standpoint. From the business owner standpoint, sometimes there might be actual costs that are related to it. Let's see, do you guys have a subscription program at JGalt, Charlie?
Yeah, I mean, I'll chime in there. I was going to, but then I thought maybe you're going somewhere else with it. But yeah, I mean, we don't really, but what we do is we're focused on helping small businesses. We consider ourselves crusaders to help small businesses. So we realize that entrepreneurs, cash flow is one of the major problems that entrepreneurs have. It's where a lot of them bottleneck. It's where a lot of them are struggling. And we're providers of cash flow. So part of that is we do try to provide flexible plans. So I've learned a lot about pricing in the past year that I've been here. So we do have a plan that's, I call it a subscription-based plan. It really isn't, but if we put it into low payments for clients that maybe can't afford upfront. But if you can afford upfront, yes, you'll get that substantial discount. And then why do businesses do that? I mean, for us, like you said, it costs the same for us to do it anyway. I don't know, I don't think it's really the reason behind it for us, but just in terms of the time value of money, if I'm collecting $1,000 from a client today, I could take that money and invest it in the business and help my business grow. Whereas if I'm getting it over time, I don't have as much capital now for me to operate my business, even though as the price setter. So we're all looking at the same thing. We're all trying to fund our businesses and figure a way. So we try to do is try to find a price point, multiple price points that will help them. Sometimes it's good. I think I've heard of the rule of threes, and not that Jay Galt's necessarily doing this, but I thought this was interesting. I heard this recently where you kind of have a high price point, a low price point, and especially that's good because maybe you have a higher end service at that high price point, and your $10 million companies who don't flinch at it just say, yeah, this is what I want. I want the white glove service. I want the concierge service, and they go for that high price point. And then you have the low price point for the smallpreneur who's like struggling or maybe really needs your service but can't afford it. So you kind of give them a subscription based price or a low price point to enter, and then you kind of have that middle price point, which I think, according to this theory that I read, and not that this is Jay Gold's theory, but somebody else's theory, is the goal is almost in this 3-point plan. Not that that's again not us, that most people will go for the middle price because, well, that's too high. I'm not getting as much service. So I want that, that middle price where I get a lot of the services. I've got almost everything. And I don't know. I mean, is that something you've heard of, or is that something that makes sense?
I absolutely. And I mean, I think especially for software subscriptions, we've all seen this. There's like the entry level, they're like our most popular, and it's like bigger and it's like, like a bright color or something. And then it's like, or if you want the like premium level service. And I think it's interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if that's like weaving several of these together. Because if you think about it, the entry level is kind of like the freemium or like the economy, like you're competing on price. It might be like a little bit of a loss leader. And then when people get a taste of your service, they switch over to the most popular one, because when it comes down to it, that's like really what people need. And then you might have like a higher version of stuff that's like extra service things. So that might be like a value pricing strategy where it's this everything that's in the most popular one, but maybe they get like the ability to call you anytime 24/7, or they get access to like a free images or something like that through a catalog. A lot of times the add-ons are just more of the same thing, that when it comes down to it, maybe it doesn't cost the company very much, but the impact that it's having on the customer might be worth it, and so they're willing to pay more. That's really interesting.
Sense. Now, are you ready for a couple questions from our guest?
Yeah, it's a good time because, hey, look, there's the discussion
cool.
slide.
I wasn't sure. Okay, so it looks like just one, but if anybody else has questions, now would be a good time to submit them. We are nearing the end of our webinar. So this question is from Deborah. Deborah is a speech pathologist with a mobile in-home service and self-pay. Do you think the promos might help in the beginning stages?
The promos. I'd love to hear more about what those promos are. I don't know if she's on and she can explain that.
Maybe she responded. I'm thinking maybe like the promotional, like using promotion. I think that was one of the things you talked early on. This came in early on when you were talking about promotional. So maybe does it make sense in the early stages for that promotional
I
type?
mean, I've seen people use it to success, especially if you're a coach. She said she is a speech pathologist. Is that right? So that's a really one-on-one service. And so your target audience is really going to want to trust you and feel like they're going to enjoy working with you. So they might be really willing to hop on like a 20-minute discovery call or something like that to like get to know you and to be dazzled with your your warm personality and your knowledgeable nuggets that you pass down to them. I know that sometimes service providers will just charge like an entry level fee for something that's basically a discovery call. Maybe it's an audit interview where you get to know them, and then from that you're able to suggest a plan for them. But there's some sort of value they get in the beginning. So if you could price that in a way that still compensates you for your time. And I do think that sometimes when you give things away for free, you're sending the message they don't have any value. So if you can ask the customer to pay a little bit for it, sometimes it helps them like show up and helps them take the advice that you give more seriously, as opposed to doing like a free entry level thing. So I don't see that being a bad idea at all. I'm sure Shlomo with his budgeting would tell you to make sure that you're not giving away too much for free. Make sure your promo isn't something that's going to take advantage of your bottom line. But some of the strategies we talked about today, like maybe you reduce the time, or maybe it's actually a video that you record that they get, and so you're investing some time in the beginning and they're getting value. But once you do it once, the repeat of it is not that big of a deal.
That's
So
great.
that's a lot of ideas. I don't know. I hope some of them were
Oh, that's great. And
helpful.
she does do the 20-minute call, which is great. And yeah, she was talking about a promotional price to get you interested. So I think you answered her question well there. I do have another one now from Jen, and this is a really good one. Is there a price point at which one would be better off not posting on the website and offer pricing in that discovery call instead?
Good one, Jen. I do think that as you climb up the price tier points, as you get into people who are looking for a more custom and luxurious and bespoke or like tailored to them service model, it makes sense that the pricing would be custom to them. So I think that absolutely makes sense. Um, a lot of times people who are unsure of something, or they're looking for a deal, or they're a little bit like, maybe they're at a point in their business where they're um bootstrapping and like kind of desperate for help and what they can get. Those people aren't going to want to be surprised by a price, right? Like that's going to freak them out. In fact, they might have a hard time like saying no, and they don't want to feel like they're being sold to, so they just might not even do it. And for them, maybe something that's the discovery call or the entry level thing is a better fit. And then as their business matures or their needs become more robust or clear to them, they might be more willing to invest in a larger ticket item. But I could definitely see why you wouldn't want to post a price point for something that is tailored particularly to somebody. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think like a lot of higher end services sometimes will not maybe want to say what their price is until they get you in that call and they kind of sell you their product and hey, this is what we can do for you. And so they want to kind of build the value. If it's not like your average product, if it's something that maybe they don't understand, or like maybe a business consultant or something like that, or even in the case of Deborah that just asked a question, meeting with her, and you get to see her expertise and how much she can help you. So maybe she doesn't want to advertise her price until she's in there. Depending, of course, I think, and I think, like you said, the higher end stuff, it probably becomes even more important because you don't want to scare them off. But then when they see the
Right.
value, you kind of build that value. They say, "Oh, well, you know what? This is worth it."
And I think it goes also to that psychological thing that we were talking about, where you're the endowment effect is something I was wanting to mention earlier. It's that the more a customer anticipates that they already own the item, the more like value they endow upon it. So like if you go to a clothing store and you try something on, you're already envisioning that you own it. Like you're more likely to purchase it than as if you hadn't tried it on and stuff like that. So I could see like if you were a service provider and you didn't have the pricing on your website and then you had a conversation with them, you're sort of like walking them through like, this is what it would be like to work with me. I'm a great knowledgeable person. Here's some other businesses that I've helped. Here's, some possible outcomes of our work together. And then at the very end, after they're all pumped up and excited about working with you, you're like, either you can give them the custom pricing, or you can book a second meeting where you have actually put together like a bespoke like estimate for them, depending on how complicated your business offering is. But yeah, like leading with the value for higher ticket items, I definitely got to be the way to go.
All right, great. Let me see. I think that's all the
Well,
questions.
we're at time. I want to be mindful of, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
One more question, if we could squeeze this in. Do you
okay.
have any recommendations on how to do market research on the price of a similar product or service?
Oh, well, there's a lot of ways you can do that. Um, I mean, you could just search online, of course, if they don't have their prices posted. You can um, look at customer reviews. So sometimes people complain or mention that it's worth it in like Yelp reviews, Amazon reviews, stuff like that. Um, you can also join industry groups. I've seen some really wonderful, transparent discussions on like LinkedIn groups or sometimes Slack group of other industry professionals. Um, sometimes there's market research that you can buy. You can actually hire a market research firm, or sometimes there's reports out there. A lot of times there's articles. Google Advanced Search, if you've never played around with it, is amazing. I would definitely check that out. And then I've also had people get in touch with me and ask for a quote, and I'm pretty sure that they were one of my competitors and they just wanted to know what I charge. So not the most forthcoming way of getting that pricing, but you could, if you're comfortable with it, maybe someone could do something like that.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, that
Yeah.
exhausts the questions from our group.
Oh,
We're up against our time, but that was
it was
amazing,
us.
Alicia. We appreciate all your information and knowledge. That was awesome. And thank you everyone who joined us today. And looking forward to our next one in a month. It will probably be on business credit, I think, but who knows? We'll
Oh,
see. We could go some other direction. But again, thank you everyone for joining us, and looking forward to next time. Thank
yes.
I
you.
And
think
if you have ideas, you can contact us on these websites and suggest a topic or something.
Yes.
exactly. Feel free to suggest, and if anyone has future questions, even for Alicia, she will be more than happy to respond to it after and let you know. So thank you all.
Yeah, we'll tack that onto the YouTube video that we post. So thank you,
Mhm.
everybody.
Thanks, guys. It's so great to have you.